Hi, this is Odeean. Today I'm having a look at Bandai's Soul of Chogokin GX-62 Danguard Ace. That white flare you see behind his head there is not light reflecting off the box. It's actually printed on the box. At first I thought it was my setup, but no, it's not. If you flip the box around, on the back you can see quite a few pictures of him doing all the things that he can do with his accessories. We get 3 trays inside the package. One on the left here, which is styrofoam, and the 2 accessory trays, which are more like normal packaging by today's standard clamshell plastic. I like the styrofoam, and given that this is a heavy little die-cast figure, I think styrofoam was the way to go. Also in the pack we get this full colour instruction basically, but it is a nice little glossy magazine that looks pretty good. You can stand it behind your figure and display if you want. Here's the figure itself. I've not got too much to say about the anime or his appearances on Western TV, as I think it was Force 5. I'm not quite old enough to have seen that locally, and I've never downloaded any of the original show because it was just a little bit tricky to get. So in a way it's good, because my impression of the figure can be just based on what's in front of me and not character driven like so many of the other things that I collect. Bandai have done a really good job at getting all the details perfectly crisp and sharp, and because of that kind of perfection in their process, it can be very misleading and deceptive looking at this figure to get a feel of how big it really is. So you hear the word Soul of Chogokin, and the first thing that jumps into my mind when I hear Soul of Chogokin and see one of these classic style robots is a big figure. But getting out my ruler, you can see that in centimeters it's about 20 centimeters. Oh wait a minute, sorry, ruler upside down, stupid me. About 18.5 centimeters, I think. Yeah, that looks right. So what's that? It's about 7.5 inches. Very, very small compared to what I had imagined it was going to be. Just to get that point across, here is a xenomorph from NECA. He is much bigger than Danguard Ace. Here's Danguard Ace next to MP10. And funnily enough, here's Danguard Ace standing next to DX Mazinger Z. So his face is right at crotch level. So definitely a lot shorter than what I had anticipated. But I don't want to create the impression that I'm disliking it because of the size. Here's the GX-54, which is one of my favourite Soul of Chogokins, and he's even shorter than Danguard Ace. So there is a place in SOC for this figure, and it's probably on the shelf with these guys. In fact, they don't look too bad together at all. Before I go ahead, I just want to make a quick little note. I read someone mentioning my autofocus going in and out. Sorry about that. Unless Vodafone upgrade my OS to 4.2.2 Android, I can't lock my focus. So that is the cause of that problem, and I am aware of it. Sorry for any visual suffering that causes you. Anyway, on to the poseability. This is surprisingly poseable. So we've got these ball joints in here, which I've just popped out to show, which are also on a little swinging bar, but the ball socket is also movable. So what that means is that you've got a kind of ability to accordion it in and out, which gives room for reaching right in front like that, which is pretty impressive. The elbow is double jointed to give more than 90 degrees. What's that? That looks about 130, something like that. We have a swivel, and in the wrist we have rotation. We have that weirdness, which is for transformation, but it does give the ball a little bit more room to move. The thumb can move just like that, and the fingers can open and close. They look like they're separate, but all the fingers are on the one piece. The head is on a nice ball. Quite a large range of motion here. Very pointy and fragile is one thing to watch out for, especially this at the back. It would snap off, I think, if you got it snagged on something, so that's one thing to watch out for. There's a bit of jiggle at the waist, a bit of backwards and forwards and jiggle. I think that's just how the pieces join together. Let's get these arms out of the way. And at the hips, we can move all the way out like that. It's a big range of motion compared to a lot of other SOCs. It's quite impressive. Don't mind that, that's supposed to happen. Not really a swivel. There's no swivel at the thigh, but it does kind of have a bit of jiggle. The knee joint is ratcheted and double jointed. Like so. So there's a very, very wide range of motion possible on these legs. The foot, again, another wide range of motion. Backwards and forwards, rotation, and that, ankle tilt. And that about sums up the Poseability. You can see at the back that I've put a set of wings on. The instructions actually say just to take those off, but I don't like to have a situation where parts are totally disappearing in the transformation, so I choose to have the wings on in this configuration in robot mode. The chest section can open up, and these parts are used in one of the vehicle modes. They look like little landing gear, but if you want a more accurate, I'm guessing, look, we can just pull this out and pop on a replacement panel. Now I don't know what that is, some kind of jet, some kind of weapon. I guess if I watched the show I would know, but I don't really care. I keep it closed most of the time, only showing this for the purposes of the video. His hat can actually pop off like that. He's got a bit of a pinhead, but I guess he has to have that for it to fit inside. And it is kind of cool to see a robot scalp. Yeah, kind of like that. That's pretty nice. The definition in his eyes really brings out the kind of detail too. That helmet that I took off can bend up like this and form a kind of spaceship. Now we do get an alternate spaceship, which is this one. And this one has little wheels on it, which is pretty cool. Those wheels, if you fold them in like this, it can actually be removed. So you can take this out. This is where his head would go. And you can pop that one back on top of the robot. So either way, either one of those spaceships can function as the helmet. The only difference being that if you put this more fully featured one on, you get the little round sections just at the base of his neck there, which are a little bit ugly. But if you want perfect transformation so that the actual spaceship that you see later is used on his head, this one is the way to go. On the legs down here, you can see these things that look like arrows. You can actually pop them off, and they have a handle that extends like this so that you can join two of them together. But there is no need to actually use this because we get alternate parts in the set. So we get these two, and these are double-sided, more three-dimensional than these guys. So it's just as nice to leave these clipped onto the leg like that and use the alternate parts as a weapon. They can join together like this to make this double-ended spear. I'm guessing that's what it is. He can hold that just by grabbing onto it. His hands are surprisingly firm at grabbing that. The joint is stiff at the moment, so he has no trouble whatsoever making a solid connection with that weapon. If you don't want to use the hands that he comes with, you can pop them off and you get to choose between a pair each of these. So we've got a open finger hand, a punching fist hand, and a gripping hand that you can put the weapon through to give a really secure hold. I think the hands he comes with are just fine, and I don't use these at all. Let's get to the transformation. So, pop off the helmet, stand him up straight so that his elbow pivots are at the front here. The fingers are extended down and the thumb's just pointing down like that. Grab the upper half of the body and separate it from the lower half of the body. Put the lower half aside. We need to fold these hands into the little cavities down here. So we're going to bend the elbow at that pivot that you can see. Now remember, the elbow is double jointed, so you have to just hold it a certain way to get that joint to bend. The hand is going to kind of just slot in. So once it's generally there, just compress the whole thing, including this ball region up here, the elbow region, until it all just sort of firmly goes together. Now, it is just friction holding it there. There aren't any tabs. Now do the same for the other side. So getting the hand to slide in there, slide that up, bend the elbow at the first pivot, and just compress the whole thing. That's just about done it. Just want to make it look nice and even. Okay, go ahead and push the head in. Now we grab a hold of our wings and just fold them out like so. And that's the first module of the spaceship mode. One thing that concerns me a little bit is that if you look at this section here, you can see that out of the box it comes wrapped in a piece of plastic, and obviously they've put that on there to stop any paint chipping while it's in the box. I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off, but I would have hoped that the design they had didn't chip when it's just sitting still in the box, and I hope that doesn't say something about damage that's going to happen in the future. Next we'll grab our leg module, and there's this little see-through plastic spacer that we get in the box. So turning him around like this, the spacer kind of just goes between the two legs like this, and we just push it up to the backside, the bottom area there, and that stops these collapsing in when we clip these together at the bottom. So that's pretty secure now. We grab this pointy bit in and just pull it up like that till it firmly stays there. We get the foot section and fold it like this, and then like this till it's kind of parallel. Use the fingernail slot to open up these panels at the side. Grab the first module again and open up these panels here. That's kind of a clasp, and what we can do is connect the two. There's two little tabs, one here, one here. It locks in. It's pretty good. Grab the helmet section with the little pivots on it, and then just open it up into this position. If you had the landing gear in, you'll have to pull that out first. Get this big unit and bend the front down, and you'll see that this can just slot in like so and lock. So that's the primary mode of our spaceship. Now I've got the landing gear open here just to show you that you can fold it down. It is very long and doesn't look very realistic. It seems like it would collapse under the weight. On the front here, if we open up this panel, we can bend out our little landing gear sections here. And so there are the 4 sets of wheels. Now I find that it does hold the weight. Looking down here you can see that it didn't collapse or anything like that, but I think they must anticipate that it will fall down eventually, because we get this little stand and it can just go in this position to take the weight. The instructions show it there. I guess you might have to pull off these arrow sections. Maybe just put it like that. But I don't see any need to have that there. Maybe the die-cast content prompted them to do that. If that built-in landing gear is not satisfactory for you, we get a different landing gear section, which is what I'm showing now. But in order to put this on, they say to pull off the arms, to just literally pull them off, to open up the chest, pull out this piece and stick them here. Now, I'm not exactly clear why the arms have to come off to put the wheels on like that. It seems to work just fine. Maybe it's something to do with show accuracy, and the reason I think that is because if you do pull the arms off, there's another panel that can cover up the hole back here. So my guess is that in order to look like it does in the cartoon, they give that option. But I'm pretty happy with the way that it looks just like this, and I think that's one of the ways I might be displaying it. We do get a display stand that is kind of like what we would get with maybe something from Macross, the way that it holds the jet on. It's pretty secure for your shelf. It doesn't lock in, but unless you're going to tip it upside down, you're not going to have any accidents. And it's low enough that you don't have to worry about all that die-cast content falling over. Looks pretty nice on display. And we've got the big Danguard A written on the front. I don't understand why it's just A. Maybe that's got to do with something about the Japanese naming of it, but a little bit confusing. As well as the two helmet spaceships which I showed, we also get these two cool looking ships. The attention to detail is really fine and precise. So as with all the little bits and pieces that I've been showing previous videos of Bandai at this incredibly small scale, they would be so perfect to sell in a big set of all the little spaceships because they're just done so well. These two can join together, the combination mode. So we just grab the front here and fold it back to give a little blunt nose ship, and it will just tab in, and there we go, a combined mode of that little ship. That's pretty nice. Now, this guy can connect to the base as well. So on the base we can have the main ship here, like the parent ship. Here's one of the helmets, and this is actually the helmet that didn't have the pivot. The landing gear did fit in that after all. It locks on. And finally this guy can just tab onto his stand there. So the three ships can go on the base at one time. If you want, all the fists can lock onto the back here, and the wings can tab on at the back here as well. I don't like to use any of those other parts. I just think they're more of a nuisance. So I just keep it like this, which is pretty cool looking. My final thoughts. So as soon as I opened the box and got over the initial shock of, wow, this thing is smaller than I thought, I came to like the figure. So it's very heavy. There's loads of die cast in this. Some that you can see, some that you can't, but it's all in there, and it weighs a lot for a figure this size. For the price, about $130 plus shipping, I do feel that the value is there. So it's not what I expected, and it's honestly not one of my favorites, but I'm glad that I've got it. And with all the other guys on the shelf, he definitely looks like he's got a home here, and I'm happy to have it. I can recommend getting him at this price, but if the price starts to climb, maybe after it dries up a little bit in the online retailers, I don't think I would want to pay much more for it. But at the retail price right now, and you can widely get this right now, I think it's a good thing to pick up. I tend to think that this guy is a bit of a Trojan horse on Bandai's part. Looking at the poseability, you can see he's got his arms crossed. There's not many Soul of Chogokins that can cross their arms. I think what's going on here is that maybe Bandai think that a lot of SOC collectors aren't moving down into the lower price SRCs where they want them to be. So one way to kind of tweak the interest of guys like me who aren't really interested in SRC is to sell a figure that turns out to be very similar in size, but is still definitely rooted in the Soul of Chogokin line, which is a bit weird considering the character, because as far as I understand, this is supposed to be one of the biggest robots, and now he's got one of the smallest Soul of Chogokin releases. A little bit strange, but as I said before, I've got no affinity for this character, and I haven't even watched the show, so it doesn't affect me in any negative way like it might if I was a big fan. But I guess the question is, has it worked? Do I now want to go out and start buying SRCs because this size and posability have drawn me in? And the answer is no. I don't really give two craps about Super Robot Chogokin. I like a lot of the characters that I see coming out of that line, and I can see the quality seems to be there, but I want my figures bigger. I'm happy to pay more, but I really want them to be big. So this is fine, the figure is fine, there's no complaints. I'm not making criticisms of this figure, but what I would get if I had my way was guys that are double this size at least. So I don't foresee anytime soon me starting to collect that other line, but I do see why other people like it now that I have a posable guy this size. So anyway, this has been my video review for Bandai's Soul of Chogokin Danguard Ace GX-62. I'm Odeean, and thank you for watching. I wonder what this is. That's to release from robot mode. I see. It doesn't really do much.